1954 saw the first Tudor Submariner that largely took its inspiration from Rolex Submariner, with Tudor being operating under Rolex's umbrella. While original Tudor subs were very similar looking to Rolex sub and had exactly similar hour markers and even Mercedes hand for hour reading, it wasn't until late 60s that Tudor changed the design of their Submariners and came up with the new reference 7021 that had square-shaped hour markers and snowflake-shaped hands. This was also the first Tudor Submariner to feature a date in the watch. Over 4 decades later, in 2012, Tudor relaunched the same exact diver's watch with snowflake hands, and this time it's called Tudor Pelagos. Just like Black Bay, Pelagos is another diver watch offering by Tudor, but this time it takes the diving to another level. Tudor Pelagos offers a greater depth rating of 500 meters, a titanium case and bracelet with a steel case back, helium escape valve, ceramic bezel with unidirectional and crisp action, and the crown protected by crown guards. There are small design elements that do give the Tudor Pelagos an edge over standard Black Bay. For example, the bezel on Pelagos overhangs the case as opposed to flush bezel on Black Bay, making it far more easy to rotate the bezel. The coin edge grip at the bezel is similar to that of Black Bay, but the slight overhanging over the case makes the design here a little more effective and efficient. The bezel numerals have luminosity for legibility in the dark, and bezel itself is ceramic. Coming to the brushing on the case, the Pelagos, even though has more modern looks, yet excels in subtlety and low tone effect. The case is all brushed and there's practically not a single surface that is polished, leaving effectively and absolutely zero possibility of any blink, shine, shimmer or reflections. Truly indicative of its tool watch nature. The interesting part is that the case has even chamfering done on it that continues all the way from one lug to the other, and then the chamfered edges still maintain the brushed finish. Even the case sides are all brushed, and this is also where Pelagos differentiates from Black Bay, which has polished case sides. The watch is very thoughtfully designed and engineered, because my personal experience is that titanium is a little dull material compared to steel. Where steel has a bit of sheen and luster to it, titanium is a little darker in its shade, and that subdued shade of titanium just goes in line with the all brushed surfaces of the watch just perfectly. Titanium is a stronger material than steel, but when it comes to real life use, it is actually also a softer metal as well, meaning that it is easier to scratch, rub or ding compared to stainless steel. So is it more versatile than steel? Lightness, yes. Tolerance to daily beating, no. And then you reach the dial and start to appreciate how perfectly harmonized it is with overall watch low key tone. There is not a single object in the dial that shines. Everything is in matte texture and either black or white. The monochromatic effect that the dial gives is actually very interesting, and the white hands floating on the black dial with white matte textured hour markers add to the overall experience and joy. The paint and the way it is applied on one hand makes the dial look very snowy and matte looking, but in return does not leave the hands or our indices very crisp under the macro. Especially at the corners, you can see the edges are not that sharp. Even the seconds, minute and hour hand shows rough surfaces, but I do think this is deliberate to enhance the snowflake effect from the hands. I particularly enjoy the phantom effect the hands give due to the black paint at their junction point, making them look like floating on the dial without any base. The inner bezel has cutout sections to house the square-shaped hour markers. And while I really like the design character and perspective they add, I do also find in some instances that the hour markers are not perfectly centered inside the cutout squares. It's not too noticeable with naked eye, but under the macro, it's hard to ignore. The bezel adds more interest to the overall watch. Mostly you'll have seen ceramic bezels with shiny surfaces and looks. and this one, even though ceramic, comes in matte texture and maintains the overall shineless looks of the watch. Very well executed indeed. And then those luminous markings on the bezel, could it be any better? I mean, it would have been ideal to have minute graduations on the full bezel, but no complaints. The movement on this Pelagos reference 25500TN is ETA 2824, and then there are 2 lines of text in the dial. This movement was replaced in the second generation of Tudor Pelagos back in 2015 with in-house movement reference MT5612. However, the watch profile, overall look and design remains the same except for one obvious difference in the dial, where the second generation Pelagos has 5 lines of text in the dial as opposed to the 2 lines in the first generation. The watch sits in slightly bigger sized case range, being 42mm and having 50mm lug-to-lug height. The case is also 14mm thick, and then there's 22mm bracelet. All of these design elements add a decent amount of substance and heft to the watch, which can be a plus or a minus subject to your personal preference. The good news is that despite all the bigger dimensions, the watch is easily wearable even on smaller wrists. My wrist size is 6.5 inches, and you can see there is no sense that the watch overhangs or cantilevers out of my wrist. The case with the bracelet contours to the wrist and makes the watch absolutely a statement piece even on smaller wrists. I personally don't think you will not want to consider this watch unless you have smaller than 15cm wrists. The watch comes with the clasp that absolutely nothing else in the industry offers. While there are many options out there to offer extension or quick adjustment mechanism to tighten or loosen the bracelet, Tudor Pelagos comes with automatically adjusted spring-loaded clasp that extends or contracts the bracelet overall length to go along with the changing of your wrist size during the day or seasons. The spring-loaded mechanism can also be easily locked if you rather prefer to have fixed bracelet length. Tudor Pelagos is the watch that you would absolutely want to get if you are looking for a diverse watch that offers the most subtle appearance, arguably the best lume out there, lightweightness due to being titanium, and then all brushed design, truly making you believe that less is more. Regardless of whether you go with the first generation or second generation of Tudor Pelagos, there's something common between them. You get the watch with a rich history and heritage to talk about and take pride in. A sturdy design that has stood the test of times, and the watch that defines what a tool watch actually means.